He blasted into the entertainment scene like a lightning strike tearing open the night sky, sharp and rebellious with a confidence that felt almost dangerous. By the time Katt Williams hit 30, he wasn't just a comedian anymore. He had become the one person Hollywood couldn't silence, no matter how hard some tried. For almost 30 years, people have laughed at his jokes, reflected on his commentary, and then whispered to each other about the sting hiding inside his storytelling. But behind every laugh sits a scar, behind every punchline sits a scheme, and behind every spotlight sits a secret Hollywood would rather stay buried. Now at 54, in a rare moment of unfiltered truth, Katt points straight at the names he says are poisoning the industry. 7 names, 7 stories, 7 figures he calls the shadows of Hollywood. Some names you already know too well, some will shock you, and the first one he calls out is Kevin Hart, what he calls the suspicious rise. Kevin Hart always walks on stage with bright smiles, loud confidence, and a polished story about surviving hardship through his own hustle. But in Katt Williams's eyes, that smile hides something Hollywood never wanted the public to question. To Katt, Kevin isn't some natural-born phenomenon. He's a crafted product, a grown star molded behind closed doors. And if anyone knows how those doors actually open, it's Katt, who once stood on the roughest stages in America and watched Hollywood's selection process from the side, seeing who gets chosen and who gets ignored. When Katt speaks on Kevin, he insists it's never jealousy, just the truth from someone who survived 20+ years in the business. He reminds people he once ranked among the highest paid comedians in the country back in 2007 after pulling in over $10 million USD from his Pimp Chronicles tour. He performed for 20,000 fans in Atlanta and sold out the Fox Theater in hours. And when Kevin Hart stepped into comedy during that same era, Katt was already the big brother, the one comedians from the streets admired and followed. Yet somehow, in less than 5 years, Kevin Hart rocketed into Hollywood's favorite face like someone hit a cheat code. In 2010, Comedy Central crowned Kevin as one of their main stars. By 2011, he dropped Laugh at My Pain, pulling in over $15 million and landing himself in Forbes' top 10 highest-earning comedians. By 2014, he stacked 3 box office hits back-to-back, Ride Along, About Last Night, Think Like a Man 2. Then, in 2016, Kevin Hart became the highest-paid comedian on the planet with a massive $87.5 million. That number alone made Katt's eyebrows raise because even legends like Chris Rock and Louis C.K. weren't touching that at the time. And that right there is where Katt's suspicion grew louder. On the Club Shay Shay podcast, Katt said with confidence, "No one remembers ever seeing Kevin Hart perform anywhere." He said he asked people in Los Angeles who lived there in 2001, "Did you ever line up to watch Kevin perform?" And nobody said yes. Yet somehow, within one single year of arriving in Los Angeles, Kevin already had his own sitcom and a lead role in Soul Plane, 2004. Katt pointed out that nobody before Kevin ever rose that fast, and nobody after him has either. He wasn't calling Kevin talentless. He was calling him unusually lucky in a way that didn't match the reality of how comedians normally climb. In the comedy world, Katt explained, success usually takes at least 8 to 12 years to hit for real. Chris Rock took 15 years from his first stage appearance. Dave Chappelle struggled for 2 decades. Katt himself traveled by bus across states just to perform 5 minutes at tiny clubs. But Kevin Hart, 24 months. According to Katt, that wasn't industry timing. That was privilege built into the system. Katt said sharply, "Hollywood doesn't choose the best. Hollywood chooses the most suitable." And to him, Kevin was the perfect product. Safe, clean, controlled, non-political, and easy to package. Just walk on stage, smile big, talk loud, and keep it simple. Katt didn't say it to insult Kevin. He said it to highlight how Hollywood operates behind the scenes. Kevin's charm, his friendly vibe, his easy-to-love personality, Those traits made him the opposite of Katt's raw edge, rebellious style, and unfiltered honesty. And historically, Hollywood always goes for the predictable option. During his nearly 3-hour Club Shay Shay interview, Katt dropped one detail that had the whole room frozen for a moment. If Kevin Hart really fought his way up, then why did every early project he touched already come stamped with studio approval? Why did he drop movies year after year like he had a permanent VIP pass? Why were other comedians waiting 5 years for one break while he collected leading roles like clockwork? Katt says Kevin represents a new kind of celebrity, one that's built, not discovered. Things hit a new level when Kevin fired back at Katt with just one subtle tweet. Gotta get that anger up, out ya champ. No breakdown, no explanation, no denial. Just a soft jab disguised as positivity. That one line painted Katt as jealous and bitter without Kevin ever having to say it directly. It's a classic Hollywood move. Don't argue with facts. Just steer public emotion with the right image. What frustrates Katt even more is Kevin constantly saying Katt ruined his own career, that Katt didn't value his chances, and that Kevin earned everything through discipline and long nights. To Katt, that wasn't just annoying, it was a deep insult. He's someone who knows how brutal this industry gets when you're not the chosen one. He once performed 360 shows in just 3 years, a schedule that would break most people. During that time, Katt got arrested 5 times over misunderstandings that the media blew up like they were national scandals. He lost endorsement deals because of one edited clip that pushed a false narrative. Meanwhile, Kevin Hart, who dealt with a messy 2017 extortion scandal connected to an infidelity situation and another wave of outrage after his old comments resurfaced, walked away almost untouched by the machine. And that's when Katt dropped the line that made Hollywood shake a little. Kevin Hart isn't dangerous because he's bad. Kevin Hart is dangerous because he's the perfect proof that Hollywood can create anyone and make you believe they built it themselves. That sentence hit like a punch because it summed up everything Katt had been hinting at. To Katt, Kevin is the reflection of a system that rewards the safe pick, the friendly, smile-ready, easy-to-market face. A system that doesn't need groundbreaking talent, just someone willing to play the part without breaking the script. Fans see Kevin as the symbol of pure hustle. Katt sees him as the symbol of a polished fantasy, and that is exactly why Kevin Hart's name sits on Katt's list of the most dangerous figures in the game. Now the spotlight shifts to the next name, Tiffany Haddish, the Hollywood storm wrapped in non-stop controversy. If Kevin is the example of a manufactured success story, then Tiffany is the surprise storm nobody expected, the one who came in so fast she couldn't even brace herself. Her rise made 0 sense by Hollywood's usual rules. No powerful backers, no polished start, no wealthy mentors pulling strings. What she had was a past full of pain, a childhood shaped by chaos, abandonment, and surviving a foster care system that left deep marks. But Hollywood isn't interested in your wounds, only what you can put on a screen. And Tiffany brought exactly what the industry needed at the height of the women's empowerment wave and the push for racial inclusion. A fresh face who was bold, unfiltered, and wild enough to say things nobody else dared to shout. So when Girls Trip smashed the box office in 2017 with over $140 million worldwide, Hollywood crowned her instantly. The media praised her like she was some unstoppable force. Studios lined up with contracts. TV networks opened doors that comedians usually chase for decades. She became the first Black female comedian to host Saturday Night Live, won an Emmy, dropped a best-selling book, and signed multi-million-dollar movie deals, all within 2 years. But people who had followed Tiffany for a long time noticed something beneath the success, signs of instability that came from a life that had never given her space to breathe. To survive fame, a star needs a foundation built on experience, emotional balance, and discipline. Tiffany entered Hollywood carrying the history of a survivor, a person who had been through harsh family turmoil, bounced between homes and foster care, once homeless, once living out of her car, and working any job she could just to make it to the next day. People with stories like that usually face 2 futures. They either rise as symbols of rebirth, or they get overwhelmed under the heat of fame. And Tiffany ended up experiencing both at the same time. Hollywood adored her because her energy was raw and unpredictable, something nobody else could fake. But that same raw, unpolished energy that made Tiffany stand out also turned every slip into a spotlight moment. Her disastrous New Year's Eve show in 2018, where she walked on stage looking drained, stumbling through material she could barely remember while people walked out, became the first public sign that something was breaking. From there, her tours got hit with shaky ticket sales and sharp criticism, with audiences saying she looked unprepared, unfocused, and forcing jokes to mask the exhaustion sitting right on her shoulders. Instead of stepping back to rebuild herself, Tiffany was thrown into a non-stop pile of projects like Hollywood was racing against a clock. Big-budget films, voice roles, hosting gigs, sponsorship deals, red carpet appearances, everything stacked on top of each other, like the industry wanted to squeeze every drop out of the Tiffany moment before she could grow into a fully independent star. Hollywood loves a breakout face, but sometimes they treat that face like a limited-time product instead of a person trying to breathe. And then, in true industry fashion, one mistake was enough to shake the whole foundation. The lawsuit tied to a controversial comedy skit in 2022 blew up across the internet like a firework going off in the dark. She denied any wrongdoing, and the lawsuit was eventually withdrawn. But the damage to her image didn't fully fade. People didn't talk about Tiffany's years of homelessness anymore, or her Emmy win, or her long fight to survive tough circumstances. They remembered the edited clips that were shared nonstop online. Then 2023 and 2024 hit and things spiraled again. Tiffany was arrested twice for driving under the influence, and photos of her asleep at the wheel went viral within minutes. Suddenly, the public stopped seeing her as a fighter who battled through hardship. They saw someone slipping out of control, someone who looked overwhelmed after finally reaching the peak she dreamed about. Her career started to shake from that moment on. Projects slowed down, studios backed off, and invitations that used to arrive every week became rare. And in the middle of all that chaos, Tiffany faced everything head-on with pure honesty. She didn't deny anything. She didn't hide. She openly said she was drained, that she didn't know how to balance being a survivor and being a major star, that she was still trying to figure out how to exist under that blinding spotlight. Her honesty touched people, but it also made others realize something sad. Tiffany was pushed up the ladder too fast without the foundation that long-term stars usually get. Compared to Kevin Hart, with his polished PR team, his top-tier managers, and carefully crafted public messaging, Tiffany Haddish looked like a solo soldier thrown into a battlefield with nothing but hope and a bright smile. She represented Hollywood's other face, the one they don't brag about. The side where success can turn into stress, where fame doesn't help you heal, but instead exposes every wound you've ever tried to cover up. The reason she's considered a dangerous figure on Katt's list isn't because of scandals or reckless choices. The danger is in the truth she represents. The reminder that Hollywood has no real safety net for people who come from the toughest situations. There's no guidebook for them, no training on how to handle pressure, no mentor teaching them how to stay grounded when your name suddenly becomes a hashtag. When they rise too fast, Hollywood creates a ticking bomb without meaning to. And when that bomb finally goes off, the industry just steps aside and lets them face the fallout on their own. And that leads to the next name Katt points to, Steve Harvey, the shadow behind the spotlight. In Katt Williams' list of Hollywood's most dangerous people, Steve doesn't show up as the smiling host everyone knows. He shows up as a double-sided figure, a beloved icon in public and a powerful quiet influence behind the scenes. Katt says Steve represents the next missing piece in the pattern he's trying to reveal. The connection between Katt and Steve started like the classic story, one younger comedian admiring an older legend. Steve Harvey, one of the original kings of comedy alongside Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hewley, and Bernie Mac, was the man young comics like Katt looked up to. Steve was 15 years older, had twice the stage experience, and had built a long resume hosting everything from The Steve Harvey Show to Family Feud. He was seen as Hollywood's Cinderella man, the man who once lived out of his car, fought through hard times, then rose into a TV giant worth over $200 million. It was a story fans loved, one he repeated for years on talk shows, bringing people to tears with every retelling. But to Katt Williams, that story wasn't a testimony. It was a performance. The tension between Katt and Steve had been heating up for years, but everything finally spilled over on New Year's Eve 2008 in Detroit, a night fans still whisper about like it was the heavyweight title fight of comedy. The arena was packed with over 10,000 people, buzzing like they were about to witness two kings clash. On one side stood Steve Harvey, the polished veteran with years of showbiz respect behind him. On the other side was Katt Williams, the rebellious star riding the high of the Pimp Chronicles, sharp, loud, and unstoppable. There's no official footage, no leaked clips, just stories passed around backstage like underground legend, and those stories say Katt Williams walked out of that ring as the winner. According to Katt, Steve never recovered from that night, not mentally, not professionally, not spiritually. In his 2024 Club Shay Shay interview, Katt didn't sugarcoat a single thing. He named Steve outright and started peeling back the layers of the myth that protected him for years. Steve was never homeless, Katt said flat out, almost like he was reading out a charge sheet. He said Steve told that story 500,000 times, but Katt claimed that one phone call revealed the truth. He said comedian Mark Curry used to pay Steve $3,000 a show 25 years ago, which didn't match the famous story about sleeping in a car and struggling through the streets. If Katt's claim is real, then the emotional Cinderella Man story Steve repeated on TV, the one millions cried over, wasn't a real-life struggle, but a crafted character built to sell inspiration. But Katt didn't stop there. He went even deeper. He said he knew exactly why Steve Harvey walked away from stand-up in 2012. Steve said he retired because he was too busy with 7 TV shows, but Katt said that excuse was pure surface-level talk. He insisted Steve quit because he lost the Detroit showdown, a loss Steve never admitted, a bruise to his pride he tried to bury forever. I embarrassed him right on that stage. I called out his wig in front of 10,000 people. That night broke him, Katt claimed, dropping a statement so heavy it shook the Kings of Comedy image to its core. The public exploded after that. One side rushed to defend Steve, saying Katt was just angry, stirring up mess for attention, claiming Steve Harvey was still one of TV's biggest stars, earning around $45 million a year. They said Steve had no reason to lie about anything because he was already beloved by families across America. But the other side, especially the people who had watched Katt rise, fall, then rise again, said Katt's details were too pointed and too specific to be random lies. They started revisiting Steve's famous stories, the ones about living in his car, surviving off tuna, shaving in public bathrooms, hustling through rock bottom. And for the first time, those stories faced real questions. Old interviews resurfaced where Steve skillfully dodged topics about that 2008 Detroit night. Then Katt fired off a third accusation, one that hit Steve's professional resume like a hammer. Katt claimed, the Steve Harvey Show wasn't created by Steve at all, but borrowed from Mark Curry's sitcom Hangin' with Mr. Cooper. Katt said straight up, he stole the idea. He's not a creator, he's a copier. It was a statement that ripped the shine off Steve's pedestal in one swing. Steve Harvey responded in the most Steve Harvey way possible, not by naming Katt, not by clapping back directly, but by sliding in a soft denial during a Vice TV documentary. He said, I can always tell when someone is making things up about me on the internet, a calm but pointed line. It felt like he was saying, I'm above this, without ever saying Katt's name. But that response only made more people look at Katt's accusations, because to Katt, Hollywood is full of men like Steve, men who put on suits, talk about integrity, tell motivating stories about hardship, and stand on stage with warm smiles while relying on a whole hidden machine built to protect and polish their image. Katt says these are the kinds of figures who shape Hollywood from the shadows, not through honesty, but through perfectly crafted narratives. A machine like that, according to Katt, isn't built to show the truth. It's built to sell a fantasy. And that's exactly why Steve Harvey sits on Katt's list. It's not Steve's money, fame, or spotlight power that makes him dangerous in Katt's eyes. It's the way he used those things to push a story that Katt swears isn't real, a story polished and packaged to crown him America's #1 inspiration. Then Katt moved on to another name, Cedric the Entertainer, and the whole tone shifted like a storm rolling in. Some showbiz beef starts with money, broken contracts, or betrayal, but some start with something as small as a joke told under warm stage lights. For Katt Williams and Cedric the Entertainer, that tiny spark grew into a decades-long clash, a quiet war between two generations of black comedy, all built around one explosive accusation that split the comedy world in half. Back in the late 90s, Katt Williams was still a nobody hustling on small LA stages like the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory. Some nights, the room barely had a few dozen people, many of them comedians just testing new material. Katt was grinding for scraps, trying to get noticed in a city that barely blinked at new faces. Cedric was on the opposite end of the food chain. He was already a powerhouse, one of the kings of comedy, touring around the country with legends like Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey. Cedric had this smooth charisma, down-to-earth jokes, and a touch of wisdom that made people lean in when he talked. To a young comedian like Katt, Cedric wasn't just a star. He was royalty walking through the room. Then came the night in 1998, the night everything shifted. At the Comedy Store, Katt tested a new bit he had written earlier that evening while sitting in the parking lot waiting for his turn. It was a short joke about a black man dreaming of buying his first luxury car. It was classic early Katt, fast, sharp, playful, and ending with a twist that hit the room like a firecracker. And when Katt finished, Cedric stood up from the crowd and clapped. Afterward, Cedric walked backstage, shook his hand, and said, "That bit was good, really good." That moment hit Katt hard. It was the first time a king of comedy recognized him. It made him believe he was finally stepping onto the right path. But then came the year 2000, the release of the original Kings of Comedy, the movie that became a cultural landmark. Cedric walked on stage during his set and started telling a joke about a black man dreaming of flying a spaceship. Katt said the moment he heard Cedric start, he froze. Because the rhythm, the setup, the punchline, it was almost the exact same structure as his car joke from 1998, just swapped with a spaceship. Cedric used it as his closing bit, the grand finale, and the audience roared like he had just delivered the ultimate closer. It helped cement Cedric's legendary status in the film. And Katt, nobody knew him yet. Nobody knew the original version of that joke came from a comic still fighting for stage time. Katt stayed quiet because he was too small to speak up. He had no TV credits, no fame, no leverage. He figured maybe Cedric borrowed the bit, maybe it would blow over, but the wound never healed. It stayed with him for over 20 years. Then 2023 arrived and the spark reignited. During an interview with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay, Cedric was asked directly about the rumor of joke theft. Cedric just smiled and said, "I've never heard that joke before. I made it up myself." It was calm, effortless, but to Katt, it felt like a slap in the face. Because Cedric wasn't just denying the joke, he was denying the night, the applause, the handshake, the really good he told Katt in 1998. So in early 2024, Katt walked into Club Shay Shay and unloaded everything with no filters, no soft edges, no politeness. He said, "Cedric stole my most expensive joke." He claimed Cedric sat right there in the audience in 1998, praised the bit backstage, and then performed it word for word 2 years later, only swapping the car for a spaceship. Katt said it with so much emotion that the room went silent. To Katt, this wasn't just about a stolen joke. It was the humiliation of watching a legend take something from a struggling newcomer and assume, "This nobody will never become big enough to call me out." That, Katt says, is why Cedric the Entertainer also makes his list of Hollywood's dangerous figures. Someone with influence, status, and reach, willing to lift material from somebody below him without giving a single ounce of acknowledgement. Cedric responded fast. Cedric fired back fast on social media, writing, "This is history being rewritten." He reminded everyone he had starred in over 40 films, hosted huge shows, toured the world, and built a long career that couldn't be reduced to one joke Katt claims is his. He also threw in a subtle reminder that he once gave Katt a chance to perform at the Gibson Amphitheater, almost like he was saying, "I helped you." A quiet warning wrapped in a smile, a soft way of saying, "Don't bite the hand that fed you." The story exploded online within hours. Some fans sided with Cedric, saying jokes naturally overlap, and that Cedric, already a legend, had no reason to steal from anyone. But longtime Katt supporters, especially the ones who had watched him grind since the 90s, swore they remembered Katt performing that joke way before Cedric ever touched it. In comedy, intellectual property is slippery. Punchlines get overheard in green rooms, lines get borrowed on accident or on purpose, and the origins can fade away like smoke backstage. But to Katt Williams, this wasn't some harmless overlap. It was a perfect example of how Hollywood treats artists who don't have power. According to Katt, Cedric didn't just borrow a joke, he erased the truth. Erased Katt's presence, erased the moment in 1998 when he sat in that crowd and clapped for him. And to Katt, that erasure wasn't a small thing. It was a deep insult because it felt like someone trying to wipe away his contribution like he never existed that night. That's why, in Katt's list of Hollywood's 7 most dangerous names, Cedric holds a special spot. To Katt, he represents the figure who smiles big, plays the wise elder, says all the right things in interviews, but uses that respect to overshadow anyone standing below him. Someone polished on the outside, but carrying a level of arrogance that only someone high up in the industry can afford. Then Katt shifted the spotlight toward another giant, Tyler Perry, the man behind Madea. When people bring up Tyler Perry, they don't just picture a director or an actor, they picture an entire empire, a billion-dollar operation built on a massive 330-acre studio in Atlanta, bigger than Disney, Warner Brothers, and Paramount combined. A man who writes, produces, directs, and stars in films, series, and stage plays like a one-man army. A Madea legend loved fiercely by some and criticized heavily by others. In that massive world, Katt Williams stands on the opposite end. An artist who guards his integrity so closely, he'd walk away from any offer that didn't align with his values. A comedian who once said, "I'd rather starve than wear a dress on camera." That line alone placed him worlds apart from Tyler Perry, who became most famous for wearing a dress to play the elderly Madea, a character that made him a global brand. Katt and Tyler never grew up together in the business. They never shared stages. They never traded jokes backstage. But they shared a community, Black Hollywood, a community where many expected Tyler Perry to be the one to uplift the next generation, while Katt was known as the rebel who refused to fit any box. There was never a direct fight between the two, but the tension was always there, a silent disagreement in their artistic beliefs. Katt once said that Martin Lawrence offered him the script for Big Mama's House 2, asking him to take on a role that required wearing a dress. Katt said he refused instantly, saying just looking at the costume made his soul leave his body. That story had nothing to do with Tyler Perry directly, but everyone knew exactly which name that shadow pointed toward. From the late 90s through the 2000s, Tyler Perry became the face of the black man in a dress comedy trend, something Katt would never accept. So when Katt Williams sat across from Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay in early 2024, people expected him to call out old rivals. Instead, he brought up Tyler Perry, a man he had never clashed with publicly, and that's when everything took a sharp turn. Katt asked, "When will people stop calling Tyler Perry a builder of young talent? He hasn't made anybody a star. The actors in his movies, name them. Who actually became famous?" That question sliced through the long-time narrative that Perry was a community builder. According to Katt, Tyler Perry doesn't lift people up. He just reuses the same familiar group of actors over and over. And while Perry definitely gives people jobs, Katt says none of them break out of the Madea universe to become true A-list stars. Yes, Perry feeds the community by providing work, but Katt says he doesn't actually push anyone toward long-term success. Tyler Perry gives opportunities, yes, but Katt says he doesn't create stars, and that's what eats at him. In Katt's eyes, a man with Perry's level of power should be opening doors wide for the next generation, not keeping the spotlight locked in one place. To Katt, failing to lift others isn't just wasted potential. It feels like blocking the very people Perry once claimed to represent. But Katt says that issue was only the surface. What truly pushed him to name Perry was the type of comedy Perry pumps into mainstream culture. Medea, the loud, exaggerated, sharp-tongued grandmother played by Perry in a giant dress with a squeaky voice, is funny, warm, and lovable for millions of viewers. But for Katt, Medea is something else entirely, a distorted cartoon-style portrayal of black people, especially black women. He sees it as a modern version of Hollywood's old habit of turning black men into comedic spectacles, a long-running tradition of clowning wrapped in box office success. Tyler Perry didn't respond. He rarely jumps into public beef, and this time was no different. His silence didn't calm the conversation, it made it louder. The debate quickly stretched beyond comedy into deeper cultural issues. People started discussing stereotypes, representation, and the big question: does commercial success equal positive artistic impact? From Katt Williams' viewpoint, the answer is a hard no. Katt says Perry is dangerous not because he's evil, but because his influence is massive, powerful enough to convince people that his style of comedy is the ultimate blueprint for the community. Katt argues that Perry might be unintentionally slowing down diversity by repeating the same formula. In Katt's eyes, Tyler Perry is a king who built his own kingdom, but everything in that kingdom circles back to him. He says actors who work with Perry stay locked within the Medea universe, never breaking through to become true A-list names outside that bubble. No expansion, no breakout moments, no broad legacy. Katt doesn't hate Tyler Perry as a human being. He's never attacked Perry's personal life or character. But he hates how Hollywood treats Perry like a flawless savior without acknowledging the cultural side effects. And he hates that people keep praising Perry for something Katt believes he hasn't done, creating a new generation of genuine stars. So on Katt Williams' list of Hollywood's 7 most dangerous figures, Tyler Perry isn't a villain. Katt labels him as misplaced influence, a massive empire with the power to shift culture, but stuck recycling the same old formula where laughs matter more than depth. A man the community expects too much from, and when he doesn't deliver the dream they hoped for, disappointment turns into conflict, and that, Katt says, is the danger. Then Katt turned his attention to someone nobody expected: Ludacris. If Tyler Perry represents cultural power, Ludacris represents something completely different, a story of friendship turning into quiet disappointment. A story of a man Katt once laughed with backstage, someone who could call him directly without an assistant, someone who felt real, until Katt says he saw something he despises most in Hollywood: compromise. Atlanta in the early 2000s was a small creative world. Ludacris, still a DJ at Hot 97.5, was turning himself into a rapper with that bold style, long afro braids swinging and a rapid-fire flow sharp enough to slice air. Katt Williams was grinding in comedy clubs, celebrating nights when he made a few $100. Nobody was rich, nobody was a superstar, but everyone knew each other in the Atlanta creative scene. They were surviving off the same crowds and applause. When Ludacris dropped Pimpin' All Over the World in 2004, Katt Williams jumped on the track with a comedic outro, a fun little cameo that proved their relationship was cool. No drama, no tension. At that time, Ludacris was one of the few big rappers who showed love to black comedians by putting them on records. Katt remembered those days fondly. But then, Ludacris stepped into Hollywood, and according to Katt, the man he once knew disappeared. When the Fast and Furious franchise exploded, Ludacris transformed into someone Katt barely recognized. The braids were gone, the mustache was gone, the wild energy was gone. The rebellious Southern rapper became a family-friendly movie star, talking softly on late-night shows, smiling politely, and rocking clean-cut suits like he'd been trained for network TV. That new image made Ludacris hundreds of millions. Nobody argues that. But to Katt, that transformation wasn't growth. It was a trade-off. A trade-off Katt considers the ultimate Hollywood compromise. Then in early 2024, on Club Shay Shay, Katt Williams shocked everyone by naming Ludacris as one of the 7 most dangerous people in Hollywood. The entire room froze. Nobody predicted it. Nobody expected Katt to come for Luda, a man he'd never publicly called out before. And then Katt dropped the line that sent the internet into chaos. He said Ludacris joined the Illuminati. He claimed Luda agreed to strip away everything about his old identity in exchange for a 20-movie deal worth $200 million. The claim had no proof and leaned straight into dramatic conspiracy talk, but it carried Katt's signature explosive style, loud, theatrical, and aimed at the one thing he can't stand, what he calls selling yourself to the system. Katt didn't stop there. He even threw in a harsh comment about Ludacris's wife's appearance, a jab that caught people off guard. Even longtime fans were confused, asking themselves whether Katt truly believed what he was saying or whether he was speaking from raw frustration in the moment. But no matter the motive, the shot was already fired. This time, Ludacris didn't choose silence like many others. He responded in the most Luda way possible, through music. Over the beat to "Devil in a New Dress," Ludacris posted a freestyle on Instagram. No insults, no shouting, no messy drama, just sharp, calm bars delivered with veteran skill. Never joined the Illuminati, it's just Luda being clever. R.I.P. John Singleton. Made millions from fast without selling my soul. More and more addicts out here. Some of these clowns need to look in the mirror. That last line hit the internet like a lightning bolt. Everybody knew exactly who he was referring to. Katt has faced rumors for years, and Luda didn't need to say his name. People instantly connected the dots. It was a smooth but deadly counterpunch, elegant and sharp enough to put Katt in a spot he couldn't wiggle out of. After that freestyle, Katt went quiet. No response, no cleanup, no extra fire added to the flame. Maybe he realized a battle with Ludacris wasn't one he could flip in his favor. Especially not on a musical field where Luda is simply too skilled. But that doesn't mean Katt had no personal reasons behind the call-out. In Katt's worldview, Ludacris represents the kind of artist he fears most. The ones who shapeshift completely just to fit into Hollywood's clean, safe mold. The artists who trade in their original identity, their style, their edge, their cultural roots, just to become a marketable global product. To Katt, that's not evolution, it's surrender. He used the word Illuminati, not because he literally believes in a secret cult, but because to him, the Hollywood system that pressures artists to change their voice, their hair, their vibe, and their whole personality is just as dangerous. It demands sacrifice. It demands you choose between truth and fame, and not everyone picks the right path. Among Katt's 7 dangerous names, Ludacris carries the least personal beef, but he represents most clearly Katt's fear about the price of fame. When Katt looks at Ludacris on the Fast and Furious red carpet, lining up for photos with the clean haircut, polished suit, and soft smile, he sees only one thing: Luda isn't Luda anymore. And then Katt shifted the spotlight again to someone who didn't betray him, didn't fight him, didn't steal from him: Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker didn't stab anyone in the back, didn't chase blockbuster deals, didn't chase drama. He simply vanished. And in Katt's suspicious eyes, people don't disappear from Hollywood without a reason. Chris Tucker and Katt Williams were never close friends. They never even acted together in the same movie. But they both stepped into the same legendary universe, the Friday franchise. Chris Tucker was the heartbeat of the first film in 1995. His character, Smokey, wild, hilarious, unpredictable, became a cultural icon throughout Black America in the 90s. Smokey's energy was unmatched, the kind of comedic lightning that strikes once in a generation. 7 years later, Katt walked into Friday After Next in 2002 as Money Mike, a sharp-talking, street-smart, flashy hustler built in the same style of urban comedy that Chris Tucker had once defined. In interview after interview, Katt has said Chris Tucker inspired him. The raw spark, the camera presence, the bright electric energy. Tucker was the type of artist who could change the whole room just by stepping into it. But then something strange happened. After the massive success of Rush Hour 3 in 2007, Chris Tucker went quiet. No big movies, no comedy specials, no heavy media run, nothing. Katt Williams, who has lived through his own unstable chapters, looked at Chris Tucker's long silence and couldn't stop himself from asking, what did Hollywood do to Chris Tucker? That question might have faded away until Shannon Sharpe casually mentioned Tucker on Club Shay Shay. Sharp wasn't stirring drama. He simply asked whether making another Friday movie would be tough now that several original cast members had passed. But instead of reminiscing, Katt detonated a media bomb right on the set. Chris Tucker ain't Chris Tucker no more. That's Chris Tucker from Epstein Island now. Katt said it with a straight face, and the whole room dropped into silence. Social media erupted instantly because nothing sparks shock in Hollywood faster than that name, Epstein Island. That phrase is one of the most toxic keywords in the entire industry. Katt's words referenced an old detail the internet already knew. Chris Tucker's name appeared on a 2002 flight log for a charity trip to Africa, part of an HIV/AIDS relief mission. Tucker explained years ago that he had no idea who Epstein was, never visited any island, and only joined a humanitarian trip with Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey. But for Katt, that one detail was enough to trigger suspicion. When you believe Hollywood is a maze of hidden motives, every coincidence turns into a signal. Every accident feels like a secret. And any name seen near Epstein becomes, in Katt's worldview, a puzzle piece in some dark narrative, even if there's no evidence behind it. Katt never claimed Tucker committed a crime. He just said, Tucker isn't himself anymore, hinting that something changed him, like the carefree spark of Smokey had been dimmed forever. But Katt didn't stop there. He pulled Michael Jackson into the mix. He said, Michael Jackson used to call Chris Tucker Christmas. Y'all ever heard a man give another man a nickname like that? It was a subtle, slick line, light in tone, but sharp enough to stir people online. Michael Jackson and Chris Tucker were known to be close, and Tucker defended MJ publicly during his legal battles. The nickname Christmas was simply MJ being playful, but Katt twisted it into something that left a strange shadow hanging in the air. Piece by piece, Katt painted a narrative, not factual, not proven, just his own interpretation, that Chris Tucker didn't step away from Hollywood because he was bored or focused on faith, but because he saw or experienced something too dark to stick around. Tucker's fans were furious. They said Katt was being unfair, taking shots at a man known for being gentle, private, and non-confrontational. They pointed out that being on a 2002 charity flight doesn't mean he had anything to do with Epstein's crimes. Chris Tucker eventually had to respond. In an interview with Page 6, he clearly stated he had never been to Epstein's Island, had no idea about Epstein's criminal life during that charity trip, and felt heartbroken being dragged into dirty narratives. Friends stepped in too, defending him and saying Tucker had chosen a quieter life, leaning into faith, avoiding raunchy material, and stepping away from Hollywood by choice, not fear. But to Katt, explanations don't fix anything. In Katt's worldview, Hollywood is a trap, and nobody just walks away clean unless something inside that machine scorched them. He looks at Chris Tucker, a man who once earned $20 million per movie, one of the highest paid black actors ever, and then sees him walk away from the spotlight completely. To Katt, that can't be random. That can't be normal. To him, it means Tucker knows something the rest of the world doesn't. And that's why, in Katt Williams' eyes, Chris Tucker isn't dangerous because he did something wrong. He's dangerous because his life represents the part of Hollywood nobody likes to talk about, the part where brightness lifts you to the top and then the same light turns toxic enough to make a person disappear from the world they once ruled. If you want to dive even deeper into the secrets Hollywood never once touched, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling us who you want uncovered next.